The university that I chose to study with regards to the African American studies that it has in its university is Yale University. I chose question number 1 that says provide some history of the program, how long has it existed, and which events led to its creation. Well, the African American Studies program has been celebrated at Yale University for over 50 years. Its program was established in 1969 after several Black students expressed their four main concerns, which was increased Black enrollment, the development of African American studies, better relations with Black New Haven community, and an Afro-American cultural center. 14 Black male students matriculated to Yale, a record number for that time. Along with Black upperclassmen, these freshmen launched the first Spook Weekend, a huge social weekend that brought hundreds of Black students to Yale from throughout the Northeast. The next year, the Yale Discussion Group on Negro Affairs was founded. The discussion group soon became the Black Student Alliance. Question 2 as well. What is the program's mission? How is it similar or different than Nathaniel Hare's original vision? The mission in this program is to explore the innovative, complex, and distinctively describe the African American social structures and cultural traditions that Africans in the diaspora have created. Additionally, they have a section on their webpage titled Call to Action, where the students express concerns with the issues today and take notice of it by stating, "We continue to mourn and oppose the death of so many, too many who have been killed during encounters with the police or their surrogates." This is very similar to the vision of Nathaniel Hare's, which started in San Francisco State University, or college at the time. Although that was the first college to implement African American studies, there was still a battle with the college administration, and that is what caused Hare to eventually leave the college. But it became the catalyst to start African American studies everywhere. Students started realizing that this is something they can actually strive for and succeed in obtaining. Yale University offers many different courses in the African American Studies program. There are 2 that I specifically pulled out due to its course title that I found very interesting. One is called Is That Racism? And what this is theories and methods for diagnosing and demonstrating racism. I would find this interesting because while we all feel that we can explain and define racism, there may be times where we are wondering if one particular instance or situation is in fact racist. I find that interesting because there must be times when we are all placed in these situations and we're trying to figure out if this is something racist. Is it something that I should feel offended on, or is it something that I am doing to offend somebody else? And more importantly, how do we approach it? What do we say? Do we say anything? Another course that I found interesting was one titled Race, Class, and Gender in American Cities. This is examining how racial, genders, and class inequalities have been built, sustained, and challenged in American cities. I thought this was extremely interesting because it focuses on the 20th and the 21st century. We need to know how they did it in the past, how they dealt with this, and how to deal with it now. I think it's good to fuse both centuries together because it's going to show all the progression and all what is still necessary in order to continue progressing and heading towards the right direction of equality. It was really hard to choose two specific courses that Yale University offers because so many sound very interesting. They all have little blurs that describe what the course is going to entail and forms of studies and methods which they are going to use. I think GGC would benefit from having a wider range of African American study programs and courses. This would allow many students to learn more about the culture, rather if it's something that they are in particularly or maybe something that they want to learn about. The Yale Alumni Magazine is owned and operated by Yale Alumni Publications, Inc. This is a non-profit organization, and specifically this one article dated January and February subscription of 2006 by Judith Ann Schiff refers to the pioneers of Yale University, specifically African Americans. It notes here that it has been over 175 years that has passed since they had a fugitive slave by the name of James Pennington, who was the official, who was not the official, but was the first African American to study at Yale. The university didn't allow Pennington to actually register or earn a degree, but they did allow him to attend the classes. Now, this was around 1849. Fast forward, in 1870, Edward Alexander Bouchet, he became the first Black person to enroll in Yale College. And going forward, there is also the first African American for class of 1880 to graduate law school, Edwin Archer Randolph. And then in 1926, Otelia Cromwell, she was the first African American woman to receive a Yale PhD. Now, there happen to be many more African Americans who also studied in Yale. However, during these times, Yale did not actually have in their application to add the race. So historians have had a hard time in trying to figure out who actually was African American unless it was duly noted. And although historians have had a hard time in actually finding out every single African American student that attended Yale University back before race was a thing in applications, it is still important to note that we did have many pioneers that started very early that were able to pave the way for other African Americans to initially bring it up to all the way 1968 when African American students decided that they needed more, that they wanted to request a center for Black students and community members. And so by then in Yale, they decide we need to provide an affirming space for students and support the students and engage on larger campuses and in a larger aspect. In addition, they wanted to empower Black youth and create meaningful connections. And all of this happened due to some of the stuff that Nathaniel Harris did by fighting for social change and additionally becoming the catalyst for all Black students to feel that it is necessary to have something implemented in the universities in which they go to that they can continuously study Black America. We attend colleges and universities to assist us, to guide us in our future and what we want to do and how to get it done. But in that, we need to look to the past to see what markers have been set for us, to see what has been completed, what has failed. Where do we go from here? Yale has noted in their call to action section on their mission statements, saying, "Our work as scholars and teachers in African American studies requires bearing witness to acts of anti-Black subjugation and analyzing the entrenched systems of racial capitalism that authorize such seeming eruptions of violence. We also live with what we study. Many of us in our own department must navigate the maze of racism. And this is important because these same scholars and teachers that are teaching us have also been exposed to such experiences, are continuously being exposed to these experiences, to these injustices and forms of inequality, and wanting to know more and gain more knowledge about their ancestors and where they came from and where they're going. And so it is important to continue African American studies, to broaden the horizon of all who wants to know it, to keep an open mind, to just be accepted